Welcome to Module 7. The topic is consciousness and dual processing of the brain. We start with the topic of consciousness. We're really talking about your awareness of things going on around you. And sometimes we're highly aware of what's going on around us. For example, if you're understanding the words that I'm speaking right now, you are using a high level of conscious awareness. At other times, our conscious awareness can be rather low, such as times where you're daydreaming. And whatever you're thinking about when you're daydreaming is what you're processing at a more focused level. But the things that are going on around you, perhaps you're daydreaming during class sometimes, and you know the teacher's talking. You hear a voice kind of off in the distance, but you don't really know what the teacher's saying. We would say perhaps that's a lower level of conscious awareness. I'm going to show you several videos here in a little bit, and the first video is designed to test your ability to stay focused, and in other words, to pay attention, to maintain a high level of conscious awareness.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make? Go! The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear? Go!
So some students will see the moonwalking bear the first time they watch the video, but other students, approximately in my classroom experiences, approximately 35 or 40% of students do not see the moonwalking bear. Students who have seen similar demonstrations in the past, even if it didn't involve a bear, are usually primed to know that something is going to walk across the screen, and they'll break their attention and focus and identify that thing. But a lot of people do not notice the moonwalking bear. The cool thing about the way our brain works, though, is our past experiences have a big effect on how we perceive things. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in another module coming up shortly. But the idea is that you store all kinds of information about past experiences in your brain, and you develop expectations for things. And so once you have an expectation, it's a lot easier to notice things that you maybe didn't see in the past. So I'm going to give you another task. It's another concentration task. See how you do on this one.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away. It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
So during the course of this video, several things changed in the scenery, and the idea would be to see if you noticed any of those changes. perhaps 2 or 3. Some students think maybe something has changed, but they're not too sure. Anyway, we're going to see now how many changes did actually occur that you did not notice.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
But I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
So the reason that people struggle to notice all those things in the videos is due to something we call selective attention. And that is just our focus, focusing our conscious awareness on a particular stimulus. In doing so, there are lots of other things going on from our sensory organs, other sounds, visual stimuli, even sensations on your skin, all kinds of things that are also approaching your brain from all your sensory organs. And the problem is that our cortex can only process so much information, and so the stuff that we're really focusing on is the stuff that our cortex is really processing, and all those other things going on can go kind of unnoticed by the cortex. So in the case with the gorilla, we call that inattentional blindness, and that is your inability to pay attention to everything causes you to be visually blind to some things. Therefore, a lot of people don't notice the gorilla because they're so busy focusing their cognitive efforts on counting the number of passes. And there's nothing wrong with your eyes in that case. If you didn't see the gorilla, that's just really occurs in the cortex. It's a limitation in how much information can be processed in the brain at any given time. The other example of the woman who killed the old man in the video, that is something we call change blindness, and it's a little bit different. In that case, the visual environment was interrupted, so as the camera panned from one person to another, changes were taking place outside of your visual field. But then when you go back to that visual field, some people don't notice that those changes have taken place. So people might not notice, for example, that the butler was originally holding a rolling pin, and then later when they showed him again, he was holding a candlestick. Both of these have important implications for everyday living because we can't attend to everything. You might relate to that if somebody is trying to talk to you about something and at the same time you're trying to hear what's going on with your favorite TV show. It is very, very difficult to fully process everything from the TV show and everything that the person is telling you. Usually something's got to give, and you may get bits and pieces of each one of those, but rarely would a person be able to fully comprehend both everything that happened on the TV and everything that the person was saying to you. I think one of the interesting things about this, particularly with inattentional blindness, is that we all know taking your eyes off the road is dangerous. That's one of the reasons that we shouldn't be texting and driving. But inattentional blindness is even different than that. That's a situation where you could be watching everything in front of you, but if you're cognitively engaged in an intense conversation, for example, your neurons, your brain might be processing so much information related to the conversation that it's not able to process all the information that's coming from the eyes, just like our inability to notice the gorilla. So that's something that the general population probably doesn't understand about driving and being distracted. You can be looking at the road but be distracted in some other way. that could cause problems for you. Change blindness, I think, can relate to driving too. If you look up and notice that the light is green, and then you turn to your friend and say something in the car, and then when you look back to the road, perhaps it's possible that the light now has changed color, and you don't notice that or don't process that change in the light. So moving on, one of the reasons that we struggle to consciously process so much information is that our brain actually operates at two levels, a conscious level and an unconscious level. And I say that in terms of how it processes information. Now, it can do both of them simultaneously, which is great. And we call that dual processing. And it's great because there's a lot of times where we can be having a conversation with somebody, for example, while we're tying our shoes, and we're consciously paying attention to the conversation we're having, but unconsciously our fingers are tying the shoes just fine, and you're not even really thinking about what your fingers are doing. So the fact that our brain processes information at both levels can be really handy. It can allow us to do a lot of things at the same time and process a variety of types of information. Just though, as we saw earlier, it's not a perfect system, and our brain does have some limitations. So dual processing is referring to our two-track mind, which is that we process information on two different tracks, the very conscious level. For example, if you're solving a puzzle, you're thinking very consciously about how to move the things in the Rubik's Cube, for example, or if you're solving a math problem, you're thinking very consciously about how to compute the numbers and maybe adding and multiplying and all that stuff. And our brain has to process that information a little bit slower because it's very conscious, takes deliberate conscious effort. But as we just said, at the same time, we can also process information at that unconscious level. And this is stuff like habits, things that are so well learned that they don't require a lot of conscious awareness. So I think of times where I have a routine that I go through when I back out of the garage, and I get in my car. First thing I do is push the button in my car to open the garage door. I back my car out. As I'm backing out, I'm looking to make sure I don't hit any pedestrians or